Hello Sugar and Crumbs viewers, my name's Laura and today I'm going to be making chocolate fudge. So I'm just going to run through with you a few of the things that we're going to be using today. So we'll start with the ingredients. So here I've got a bag of our chocolate milkshake natural flavoured icing sugar. Now as we're making chocolate fudge you can use any of our chocolate flavoured icing sugars. We do Jaffa Twist, Coconut Crush, just to name a few, so obviously that's optional. I've got a 397 gram tin of condensed milk. Now this is just a supermarket's own brand. It doesn't matter what you use as long as you've got the correct amount, which is 397 grams. And then here I've got 115 grams of unsalted butter. So to get us started, I'm just going to put a pan onto medium heat. And I'm using a heavy base saucepan. Now this just basically means that the weight is distributed more evenly when you're cooking your fudge. So we'll pop that on there and we're just going to add in the butter, so we just need to let that melt. So that'll take a few minutes. So in the meantime I'm just going to show you how to prepare your tin. So here I've got the Paul Hollywood brownie tin. Now a tin about this size, whether it be square or rectangle, is fine. And I've got some baking paper. All I'm going to do is place my tin on top of the baking paper, just so I've got about this much depth around the edges. And I'm just going to cut that from the roll here. And then I'm just going to slice down the paper to each of my corners. Like that. So just do the last corner here. And I'm just taking it right up to the tin. I'm just going to take a little bit away from this side, it's a little bit too long. Okay, then we lift the paper up and we place it inside the tin, push it down, and you just let the corners envelope each other. And that's just going to stop anything from leaking out. When we put the fudge in later, that will all press to the bottom. So we'll just put that aside for now and we'll come back to our butter. So it's almost melted. Now the important thing with making fudge is that once you add in the next two ingredients, you need to stay with your fudge all the time. And you're going to have to spend approximately 15 minutes with your fudge, so you need to make sure that no one's going to be disturbing you. So the butter is all now melted, as you can see. So next we're going to add in the condensed milk. Because we're putting in a cold ingredient into hot, that's why you can hear that the bubbles and noise has gone a little bit quiet. And then we're just going to whisk that in till it combines. So you know it's combined when you start to get this nice creamy colour. You just put a little bit more to mix in the butter. Okay, that's all mixed in. So now we're ready for our icing sugar. So I'm just using the icing sugar straight out of the bag. Just grab the scissors. I'm just going to start by adding in half the bag, just so I can make sure it's all combined with that butter and condensed milk mixture. So we're just again going to use the whisk just to do little circles and get that mixed in. So when I say in the recipe that the fudge takes 15 to 20 minutes to make, that is from when you're adding in this icing sugar. So as soon as it's added in, you just need to make sure that you're whisking all the way around the pan, scraping down the sides just so you're not getting any lumps. So now that we've got that half of the bag in, we can put the second half in. And we're just going to do the same now, we're just going to whisk that in. Now the reason why you can't walk away when you're making fudge is because every time that you step away from the fudge and stop whisking, stop combining, the butter is trying to separate from the icing sugar, and because it's doing that, it will then start to burn on the outsides, and we don't want any burnt bits in our fudge. So that's why we need to just bear with it and keep going. So all you're going to do now is you're just going to keep whisking, just nice and slow, and I'll tell you when we're at the stage that you need to be getting ready to finish. Okay, so I'm just going to show you how you know when your fudge is ready. So I've been stood here now whisking away at this fudge for about 12-13 minutes now, and what you're looking for is these air bubbles. So if I just stop stirring for a second, you'll see that these air bubbles are coming up to the top and popping, and that is when it has reached the temperature that you want to be taking the fudge out. So at first you'll just see small bubbles that are popping, but when you're getting about this many, that's when it's ready. So you don't always need to use a sugar thermometer if you haven't got one. So now it's at this stage, I'm just going to turn off the heat, and I'm just going to give one final stir. I've brought my tin over, which is just here, and we're going to very carefully pour in the mixture into the tin. So while you're doing this, you need to remember that this is very, very hot, and you need to keep all your fingers out of the way and don't let anybody else touch it. So I'm just going to start pouring it over, and just while I've got the last bit in, I'm just going to try and bring that down as well. Now for some reason with the chocolate flavoured icing sugars, the fudge is always, gets to this stage and it feels nice and thick, but it's always looks slightly thinner when you take it out of the pan. That's fine, don't worry about it. But if it is slightly thicker, then you can use one of these little spatulas just to spread out into any of the corners if you need to. So now that the fudge is in there, we need to leave it to set. In about 30 minutes from now, it'll be ready to slice, but obviously you can leave it longer if you need to nip out. But you're just going to leave it out on the side at room temperature to set. So we'll come back in half an hour, 40 minutes when we're ready to slice. Okay, so the fudge is now set. So I've just lifted it out of our tin here. I'm just going to slightly unwrap the paper a little bit. You can slice it directly on top of the paper if you need to. So cut them to size depending on how big a chunks you want to have. I'll just take off the first slice here to show you. We've got a nice creamy chocolatey fudge. I'll just turn that around. So this recipe makes 700 grams of fudge, which you could, if you're going to give it out to family, you could bag up into 100 gram bags. And there you go, that's the chocolate fudge.